Hi everyone, Julia here, waiting on James, recording this on October 12th, 2022. And James and I are just going to talk about some things like we often do. I give James the floor a lot more because he's just deep. He has so much to say. And if you haven't subscribed to his channel, I'll be sure and put it in the comment, highlighted comment, and the pinned comment on this channel. So you can check his stuff out because he's always very layered and deep with information he shares, and you can usually need to listen to his stuff more than once to really get what he's saying. But yeah, I was noticing lately that a lot of people get bent out of shape when somebody on YouTube like Jason or Ken Wheeler uh, get a lot of donations. And if you don't know who Ken Wheeler is, he has the Ori hypothesis, and he's put out some amazing work on field theory and magnetism. And he also does a lot of stuff with photography, which I don't really know much about that. And then I think most of you know who Jason of Archaics is, and he's provided the world with some pretty amazing data and information that he's come across, and his interpretation of it is really interesting and something to definitely decipher through and discern through and see what you think. And it's evolving. Both of these guys seem to be evolving in their thinking and their presentations um, about what they have to offer. And I don't see any issue with them raising money. Check and see if where James is. But yeah, I don't see why people get upset that other people donate to them. No one forces anyone to give a donation or to become a Patreon member or whatever. So yeah, people just they don't like that. And there are a lot of people out there that ask for money that have less to offer than Jason or Ken Wheeler. And I really don't have a problem with that either. It's like no one forces anyone to give them money. And it's just energy exchange. And a lot of energy went into the archaics research and also the stuff that Ken discusses. So yeah, they deserve to get the money that they get. And I definitely think Jason is very genuine, and he's not acting like he needs the money or whatever. But yeah, and here's James.
Hi, Julia.
Hey, I was just talking about how people get upset. They call Jason a shill and Ken Wheeler a shill because people donate money to them. I was just saying how much they both of those people in particular have to offer, right? They give you so much information that nobody else has provided. And no one forces anyone to give a donation or become a Patreon member. So I don't know why people want to hate on that kind of stuff. And even people with less to offer, if somebody wants to donate them money, that's between those two people, right? So it's so weird that people get upset about that. And yeah, instead of being glad that they get to get paid for all the things that they offer, like Ken Wheeler, I mean, he's put out information that nobody before him has put out. And the same thing with Jason. So, in my opinion, they deserve to be paid well.
Yes, they've done phenomenal work, and this comes down to really to people not doing shadow work. I don't know whether some of it may be jealousy, some of it may be egoic, but in both both Ken's case and Jason's case, it's like, okay, if you're gonna say something about them, at least say why you're saying it. Don't just make an accusation. Otherwise, that basically puts you in the role of being the accuser.
By definition, accusation, accuser. But yeah, haters are gonna hate.
This is always going to happen. There's it's really interesting. It's taken 126 years since Bruckner died in 1896, and even now I would say that the world is not ready for the finale of the Ninth Symphony. But there is a Dr. John A. Phillips, in collaboration with Benjamin Coors. I'm trying to think of the name of the other two musicologists. They've reconstructed that finale, and it's always going to be thrown back. Whoever gives their interpretation as a musicologist, someone like Dr. John A. Phillips, he spent like 30 odd years immersing himself in Bruckner's creating process, his compositional techniques. He is an expert in that field, and for want of a better term, he's like, shall we say, an authority. And I've listened to it several times. There's a MIDI file that's being premiered on the 30th of November this year, and to me it sounds pretty much as Bruckner envisioned. But obviously, knowing with sort of a history of Bruckner, he would often go back and revise works. Sometimes some of his earliest works, there's a particular motet, I believe it was written about 1835, and he revised it in, or did some what he called touching up to it, in 1893, I believe it was. So it spans his entire sort of musical creative period. So even with what's in Bruckner's hand and pieced together from various bits and pieces that is left, the sort of short scores and various notes and things, yeah, you could argue that it's never going to be the finished authentic product, but it's as close as it ever can be without playing detective. And going back to that week after Bruckner died, somebody took those manuscripts. It was complete. His doctor is the only person in the world that actually ever heard that finale played. Bruckner played it to him on the piano, but he wasn't a musicologist, so he couldn't even hum the tune in his account of it later on in life, after Bruckner had long gone, as it were. But it's interesting, the whole chronology about it, but you could say it's impossible anyway, because it's a 4-movement work, which Bruckner's symphonies always are. That's consistent right from his first symphony, which is actually 00. It's classed as a student work. So even Bruckner didn't class it as part of his sort of canon of works. What was I going to say? Yeah, so during this creation of this 9th Symphony, he has the last rites read 3 times. He's basically been given a near-death experience, because this is what this symphony is all about. It is going beyond the physical realm. So he's musically describing outside of this construct. But the beauty of it is, because the way things have gone, it's left it open-ended. for others to pick up the pieces and keep the story going, because it's describing eternity. So to me, it makes perfect sense. But I feel if you've got like a think tank, or just maybe one psychic that can remotely view those original folios, if they still exist, if they could be found by remote sensing, then that would finalize it in as far as I'm concerned. But we shall see. Funny enough, just before you sent the link to this, I thought that I hadn't actually ever done this before. I thought, let's have a look at the origin of Bruckner's name. So the name Anton, in English, that's Anthony. It comes from the Latin meaning priceless one, highly praiseworthy, or flower, or a descendant of Hercules. I'm not particularly up on mythology, but isn't it Hercules who gives man fire, gives man knowledge?
I'm not sure. I just remember that Hercules was on Xena, Warrior Princess, a lot. That's how bad. That's how. That's where I learned all my Greek mythology.
He's sort of like the equivalent of the serpent in the garden. He's given man knowledge. But I sort of upset someone the other day. I said, well, I've embraced my Lucifer and I've forgiven them. It now works in unison. It's just an archetype, basically. It's that little voice that says, go on, have another cake, that's tempting you. But it's a necessary role. It is like the bad guy on a stage play. When that curtain closes and opens again, the bad guy and the good guy come out, they're holding hands, and they both bow together to the audience, to the observer. This is something going on inside us. We learn best through mistakes. So it's a necessary process. If you are going to have the light, then you need something that bears the light bearer that brings it in. Now, there's probably a load of, I don't know if there's anybody of a Christian persuasion, they'll probably say, oh, that's blasphemy, or whatever, because they're going to wrap it round that sort of thing. But my answer to that is, just look at the track record of Christianity in all its forms. If you want to identify with that, then you carry the blood of that religion, that cult. So take responsibility. So if you want to take responsibility for millions of deaths, then yeah, call yourself a Christian in any form, whether it be Catholic, Methodist, whatever. You're basically saying to me that you condone and approve of genocide, of annihilating people that have a different view from the Vatican. I mean, that's shown in history over and over. What if you don't agree with the church, then you're burnt to death or whatever. I mean, nowadays it's been updated, so Christians aren't fed to the lions anymore. They're fed to the lying. They're being deceived. They've fallen for the greatest deception ever played on humanity, basically.
Right. And so many people still try to defend religion, and religion
Well,
is just a control mechanism.
that becomes their crucifix because they nail themselves to a belief. And
Yep.
it's really about staying fluid. You're only going to look at the yin and yang symbol, that very fine line that separates the white and the black. It resembles a serpent or a spirit. It doesn't go straight, it weaves. It looks both sides. It's like this life experience that we're going through is a journey, and it's crossing a path. So interestingly as well, Bruckner's surname in English would be Bridge or Bridges. So you've got a divine bridge. I don't feel that's an accident with any of these names. He's a historical character, but there is no coincidences in this reality. It's just whether we choose to look or ignore. This is the free will that comes in. That's fine, but the consequences of the free will determine what happens. So anybody can look back at their life, and they can look back with regrets. They can look back and say, oh, that was a good point, that was a bad point. But the whole lot, the whole story of your individual life has brought you to this moment now. So there's no actual real bad. You've exercised your free will, maybe based on the information you had at the time. You've made a judgment. It may be from outside influences, education, parents and things. And it's seemingly made difficult from the word go. It's basically the ultimate game in which to weave your way through all this. I mean, it says in Christ says, be as gentle as a dove, but be as wise as serpents. Well, that's your quick twin caduceus inside. That's when those two serpents meet and they're facing each other like the symbol depicts, and they are meeting at eye level. They're seeing things eye to eye, and it's in balance. And then with the Kundalini raising that Christ consciousness up, it forms a pyramid. It forms a triangle. The third eye sits above them. You could even sort of see it in a physical sense, as you have the two physical eyes to look and the mind's eye to see. So you've got this triangle. But you've also got, if you take a line down to the stomach, to the solar plexus, you've basically got a crucifix there with a physical body. So it doesn't matter if these things are historically real or not. It's the story that counts. It's the story that's real, because it plays out over and over again.
It's the message, the code and the message that goes through the story. It's the message that you get from the story. Like I said, you can't know if any of it's real. I mean, if this is a virtual reality, then history is virtual too. And it may not have even ever happened. It might just be stuff to send code and messages to us so we can figure things out.
Yeah. It's really, in a way, you could say that the Bible is like the handbook that goes with the computer game. But it's not exclusive or restricted to the Bible. You can look at any of the ancient civilizations and their origin stories, and it's pretty much the same story all the way through. The characters have got different names, but the easiest way to sort of look at this, and it doesn't dismiss the Bible at all, is to look at the way Neville Goddard teaches it. It is the story of you. You play all those parts, all those characters. You are playing all of them right the way through. And it's just a guide. You can read it as astrology. You can read it as the human psyche. You can read it as the physiology and so much more. But the beautiful thing is, you can go to Wagner's Ring Cycle. That was the first time humanity had been given the Kabbalah. That's a beautiful story. It's the same story, just it's coming from the perspective of Germanic and Norse mythology as opposed to Middle Eastern mythology, as it were. But the historical accuracy of these things is totally irrelevant, really. It's like saying I'm Mario in the computer game, and I'm now going to argue and puzzle over whether the hills and the castle and the brick line tunnels, which came first? The background scene is there. I go with Our Father who art in heaven. Well, art is the key. It's creation. It's an idea that comes into the mind. The artist is the medium of that idea. With a painting, you create a background scene. Well, the background scene has already been created in this physical reality. It comes back to there was nothing made that was not first made. The background scene is already made. We're now in this. We now play in this background scene, and we shape it with our free will. But we are co-creators. We can create destruction. We can create harmony. We can create beauty. We can do the entire spectrum. I mean, Neville Goddard will say, whatever you want to do. If you want, basically, if you want to be a millionaire, well, be a millionaire. Just manifest it. Become it. There's no right or wrong to it. It's just an experience. I mean, the whole thing with this simulation theory, which triggers a lot of people. Well, I wouldn't dismiss it. I'm not gonna say it is or it isn't, but I'm open to the idea. So if it is a computer game and we're just characters in that game, if you get past that, oh, that's an uncomfortable feeling that I'm just a character in a story. Go beyond. If you see beyond that, it then takes away all the fear, because it's like, well, it doesn't really matter what happens. Nothing can really hurt me, because it's like we're on our higher self, as it were. We're on the end of a keypad or a joystick or something, and we're controlling the character in the game when we connect with our higher selves. So yeah, there's perceptions of things that are evil. There's a lot of things that are reported that are evil, but do I know them to be true? Do I know 100% what is really going on in this external world? I mean,
and is it happening to a real more personality? You know, there are a lot of background people or NPCs, whatever you want to call them here too. And some of this evil that gets pointed out, you know, it might just be part of the background, like you were saying, background people, right? Background. So,
well,
yeah, you have to focus on what you know is going on around you.
this comes down to gatekeepers. Now, I'm not pointing a finger at anybody here. We are all our own gatekeeper. While you are the gatekeeper and you hold that door open that's going to allow doubt and fear, you are your own gatekeeper. You're leaving the door open for this sort of negative aspect of this unseen energy that will, oh, there's a place for me to go. There's a host body for me to go into. And fear will only grow more fear, and to a point where it gets out of hand. And people do some very silly things out of fear. Some of it is in this reality. It is a natural reaction, like the fight or flight. It's your intuition, and that's the key word. It's intuition. It's self-taught. It's something inherent and inherited in these physical avatars. But the beauty of this whole game, or whatever you want to see it as, everything comes from nothing and manifests in this physical reality. But can anything go the other way from physical and escape from the physical realm? And I would say the answer is no to that. It's
That's a good question.
well, I think it's the biblical quote is that there's nothing added and nothing taken away. So anything that is in this physical reality stays in this reality. These avatar bodies we have, I mean, they are described as mortal remains because they remain here. They can't go anywhere else. When you've got a trinity, you have a mother, a father, and a son, an SUN. Now, you've got a paternal and a maternal. Now, look at the roots of those two words. Paternal implies pattern, a blueprint. Now, the maternal, which suggests material. So you've got a blueprint that is married or joined to a material. So you've got a spirit and a physical body, the consubstantiality of spirit and matter, which creates a sun, a light that is inside these physical bodies. They are the vehicles for which to operate. We can't go around as sort of insubstantial energy forms. You can't experience anything like that. You need a physical vessel. How am I going to pick up a coffee cup? How am I going to experience what coffee tastes like? How am I going to experience eating? How am I going to know what foods are good for me unless I can physically touch them, taste them, use the five senses to detect these things? That's what they're given to us for. Those God-given gifts. Well, you've got an all-loving creator, a neutral force. So the God-given gifts aren't going to be anything that you gain with a PhD or from any material realm accolade or a piece of paper that says you're an expert in this or that. The God-given gifts are what you come into this world with, and that's intuition. And just like in this physical reality, you've got people who are better at, say, laying bricks. You've got people who are better at balancing books, doing accountancy. You've got people who are good at baking cakes. We've all got different strengths and weaknesses. So why would it not be that our spiritual essence is going to be stronger in certain areas than others? But of course, it all balances out, and collectively, these gifts then balance out as well. But the creative thing is art. Art is subjective. It kills all arguments if you see it that way. You've got an object which you can object to. It's a subject matter. It is subjective. It depends how you see it, whether you see it as good or bad. If we take a sculpture, for example, as an example, some people are going to like it, some people are not going to like it. It's not going to please everybody. And again, this comes back to the Bible story of Jesus preaching to the crowds. Well, there's a jeering crowd when he's carrying that cross. And that shows you that the message doesn't suit everybody. But in a way, I've stepped into that role. If I'm saying that embrace the Lucifer inside you, that's blasphemy. Well, to my answer to that, or my response to that is, well, who was the first blasphemer? Is that not what these rabbis accused this character of being? And he turns around and says, is it not written in your books that Christ is within you? The message is not hidden. It's just some people latch onto this external story. And it's not just one religion. They are all a relie of the jinn. It's taken a spiritual truth and it's shuffled it like a pack of cards. And they've all got a bit, every religion, everything has something that is going to be appealing or attractive to draw you into it. You're dealing with something that would be seen as a trickster. Well, of course, it's going to look alluring. it's no different from brightly coloured jelly beans in the Victorian era. To give them that shining coating, apparently that was arsenic. But they look attractive, and just look at packaging and adverts. It's always bright colours. It's trying to get your attention. It is the adversary. It's the adverts. It's trying to lure you to look external at things all the time. But we're walking two worlds. So we're experiencing the external world, but it's important to not lose sight of that internal universe, that internal world. It's far greater than the physical world. It has no end. Oh, sorry about this. I'll just mute this for a minute.
Yeah, it's so interesting that he's talking about having this light within us, because I'm trying to upload a video right now called Let Your Light Shine. So I was on the same wavelength as James. Yeah, go ahead, James.
So I've got somebody come to the door downstairs. I'm gonna have to go and see, I'm afraid. I was hoping they weren't gonna come till about 2 o'clock or something, but is there any way you can pause this at all, or keep this going for a minute or two?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I've got somebody downstairs. So I'm gonna have to go and see,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
go ahead, James.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and do your thing. So yeah, guys, like I said, uh, James will always give you a lot to ponder, and he he really thinks things through and makes a lot of analogies that I don't think anybody else could come up with except for him. So pretty cool. But yeah, and like I said, I'm uploading a video now about just healing ourselves, being honest with ourselves, finding that light in us, because we all have it. And most of us don't think we have it. And I know that I'm definitely was one of those. And I spent many decades very depressed and self-medicating, just trying to escape reality at any chance I could get. Heavily abused pharmaceuticals. In fact, my younger sister was the same way, and she didn't fare as well as I did. She ended up drowning in 4-foot swimming pool, even though she knew how to swim, because she was so out of it from taking pharmaceuticals. And yeah, it can really get bleak and dark. And it's just so sad when that happens, because we are literally light beings. And it's being brought out all the time now in scientific experiments regarding, and if you just think of stuff they use in hospitals, like to study your brain waves and stuff, it's all electrical. Your heart is electrical, everything is electrical, which means everything is magnetic, because those two aren't really separate. Nothing is separate. They're just attributes of certain uh, things. I can't think of the other word, but Ken Wheeler talks about that a lot. That Ken Wheeler. But yeah, we have to find that light, and the best way to get there is to do your emotional healing, your shadow work, and yeah, find those judgments. And you have these judgments, most of us, that most of us have the judgment that we're not good enough. You know, that's just one right there. And we don't even realize we have these judgments, but we're walking around with all these subconscious thoughts running the show, and they do. And I just heard the other day somebody talking about when people are hypnotized, and they're asked to describe an event like going to the grocery store, they can remember every little detail if they've been hypnotized. Whereas you just ask them and you get the answer from their conscious mind, they remember very sparse details. So yeah, and do that shadow work, that emotional healing work, and you'll find your light. And you'll find that you can be happy, you can be content, you can, wake up ready to seize the day, and not just get through the day. And so again, anybody who's listening to this and hasn't heard much about emotional healing, there's a playlist on this channel. I say that a
Uh,
lot, but it's so important. And are you back, James?
yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry about that. That's
So yeah,
something outside my control of, I
but-
didn't know when, uh,
well,
as
that
I've
didn't
spoken.
take very long.
No, I said I'm on air, so I can't hang about, so that was fine. Cool, yeah.
Y- Yeah, but it's funny because you're talking about having, the light in us, and then
Yeah,
the term shadow work. You can't have a shadow without light, right?
exactly. Um, you've only got to look on a bright day, just look down at the ground. If the sun's out, you've got a shadow. See if that shadow will move until you move. Same as the reflection in the mirror. It hasn't got a spirit in it. A shadow, as Ken Wheeler says, is the absence of light. It's not a thing. It's the absence of something. I was, I was, I was listening just now to what you were saying about hypnotism. Well, I'm pretty sure. I don't know of anybody that has ever said otherwise, but if you're involved in a road traffic accident and say you weren't wearing a seatbelt and you went through that windscreen and you survived the accident, what you'll remember is being in a car, and then you'll think, how did I get in this hospital bed? The mind does like a firewall, because it's such an horrific event that will be so traumatic to go through. Likewise, death and birth are the same. The mind, especially with birth, because it is deliberately made as stressful for mother and baby, it wipes the slate clean, as it were. So you don't retain, well, most don't retain memories, but it's like that Etch a Sketch. When you do that slide bar to get rid of the previous impression on that screen, it starts to fire and leaves bits. This is why you get very young children who have these memories of past lives. They're able to, if they can retain them, if it hasn't been hammered out by education and system programming and generational programming, they will remember bits and pieces. That it's like there's no way, there's no rational explanation that the mind could come up with to explain it. But to come from just a material perspective, you never get it anyway that way. Another very interesting way of looking at this is what Wagner shows in the ring cycle. You have Wotan, or Odin, the ruler of the gods. He creates Sigmund and Sieglinde, the Volsung twins. And he's, in Wotan's intention, he is his sort of hero. But Fricka, Wotan's wife, says, well, he's not got free will. You're protecting him all the time. So the product, the union of Sigmund and Sieglinde, is Siegfried. Sigmund means peace through victory. Siegfried means freedom through victory. Now, in this story, Wotan withdraws his protection from Sigmund. He sends his favorite Valkyrie, Brunhilde. She goes to Sigmund and says, "You're going to accompany me to Valhalla." And he says, "Not without my bride, who's also his sister, Sieglinde." And she's immortal. This has now touched her heart. She also knows that Wotan, he loves his children. He doesn't want to see them hurt. So in this battle with this character Hunding, who represents our egoic side, Sigmund's sword, which Wotan gave him, is shattered. The shards of that shattered sword are gathered up, and Siegfried gets hold of them. The dwarf that has sort of befriended him and said, "I'm both your mother and your father." Siegfried is an innocent. He doesn't know fear. He leads this very sheltered life. But it occurs to him that he can make this sword again. He can rebuild it. He can take those shattered parts. It represents the spine, and he reforges it. So when he meets what is effectively his grandfather, Wotan, who is blocking his way, Wotan in the third part of this, called Siegfried, he's punished Brunhilde for disobeying him and taken away her immortal status, so she's now a mortal woman. But he surrounds her in this magic fire, so only the one that has no fear, that is worthy, can go through it and find her, which is Siegfried. He knows no fear. Where was I going with this? Yeah, so that represents the spine. So when Wotan is standing in his way, he cuts the spear. It breaks all the treaties that are carved as runes on the spear. It's expressed as Jupiter castrates Saturn. I think it's Noah is castrated by one of his descendants in. I remember Jason talking about this. I can't remember which of the ancient civilizations it comes from, but the point of it is it's exactly the same story. You're breaking with the past. You're breaking with the authority, because you're the son of the sun. You've still got that God consciousness inside you. It's like the parting of the Red Seas. It's the activated pineal gland being shown in this as well. It's a beautiful esoteric message that's coming through with all these things, and you'll see this is where it comes down to the pattern. You've got the maternal, because everything is born of the feminine principle, Mother Earth, the female egg. The pattern is the seeds. That's the paternal side. You need both for creation. And it doesn't matter which way you look at this pattern, this blueprint to it, or it's going to repeat. It's just interpretation, interpolation, perspective. If you're going to go into anything with preconceived ideas, instead of just looking at everything and weighing it up inside yourself, does it feel right to you? Does it not feel right to you? Take whatever serves you, discard the rest. That doesn't mean serve as in your heart, like you're on a throne and everyone's got to bow down before you. It's not an egoic serving. It's what benefits you is probably the better word. Is it going to be something of benefit to you, or is it something that's going to mislead you? Is it something that is going to cause you harm? These are all internal questions to ask yourself about anything that the external presents. It doesn't matter what source it comes from. Everything comes from nothing. Everything manifests in this reality. This is where the free will comes in to wire it up inside oneself. Oh, that was the other part. The sword in the ring cycle is called Notong, which means nothing. And that again is a huge message. If we're putting focus and energy into something, it's no longer nothing. You destroy what shouldn't be with nothing. You don't give it any attention. You don't feed it energy. I mean, a lot of these things will keep going, like in language lessons of the heart. That abuser, that school bully, it's only kept alive by your memories of it. But you can rewrite, you can overwrite that memory. You can say goodbye. You can let go of all that. I mean, you've done it, Julia. I remember you saying you moved to Prague with just 2 cases. You let go of the material, and I'm sure you feel better for it.
No doubt about that. And yeah, you're totally right on all of this. There's so much more to us than we're told, and you know, it's in the video I'm uploading now. But you know, we're just so many people just come into this life and feel like they just suffer through it, hoping that there's something better after this is over. And man, we can just be enjoying our magic this whole time and creating and just doing
Well,
having such a one existence and not just a hardship that so many people feel like this life is, and then they go into that whole soul trap scenario and just go down that road. And if you think this is a soul trap and you live that way, then it is, right? If you
yeah,
believe it, then it's true. So
what they,
it's not, it's an amazing opportunity. This is such an opportunity to be a co-creator, to have all these 5 senses, really 6 senses, when you look at all the so-called natural abilities that we don't even know how to use, most of us. So yeah, it's just such a magical realm that we're in, and so many have been programmed to think the total opposite.
well, what a tragic waste if you're going to just go through 60, 70, 80, 90 years hoping for something better. The analogy I would use here is think like a child. Say your 5th or 6th birthday. Your perspective at that time, there would have been something material that you would have really wanted, a toy or something. But how long did that bring you happiness? Have you still got it? Does it still bring you happiness? Most people, I would have thought, whatever they got for their 5th or 6th birthday, it has no relevance on now. Probably most people can't remember even what the object was. But yeah, why waste? There clearly is a purpose. We have this experience from birth to death, so why waste it, wishing it away, hoping for something better, especially when it can be seen by doing all this shadow work, this internal work, that this whole new magic opens up. The curtain does fall away. Basically, at the moment, I would say this Earth has got a huge, great cataract on it. Especially if I look up in the sky, the clouds. Well, a cataract is like a cloud on the lens. I think that's what we've got up there. We're not seeing the real picture, the bigger picture, because it's hidden, it's distorted. But it will be lasered away, I feel. It will be corrected. But it's meet halfway. We can't do anything about that great big external world in these singular physical avatar bodies, but we can certainly make a huge difference as a co-creator within it. And I go with the idea that we're here to experience, we're here to have experiences so we can take the knowledge of the experience, because that's the only thing we can ever put hand on heart and say 100% I know this to be true because I've experienced it. Everything else is a concept or an idea, but until you go through it, it's like I can talk about a parachute jump. I haven't done it. I can only talk about it as a concept. But had I have already gone and done it, I can then tell you my experience of what it was like, which is an entirely different thing. I can only sort of imagine what it would be like, and but I haven't experienced it. And even if you did a parachute jump, there'd be probably quite a few people would say, "Oh, I don't believe you." And even about when you give a perspective of the experience of doing a parachute jump, that's going to be a personal experience. But you can't. It's not like you can take out a CD like you can out a device or a SIM card, and you can put it in another device. You can't. You can only describe feelings with these inadequate words. You can't give the other person the identical feeling. The only way they're going to get that is through experience of things. And it requires doing the shadow work, facing yourself, because it's horrible. Nobody really wants to do it, especially at the early stages. It's meant to feel uncomfortable because it is shifting you from one frequency to a new frequency. It's like a radio. You're tuned into a particular station, but now the dial's being changed. You're going to get that area of interference and distortion where things aren't clear. The whole idea with, oh great, so I'm just a bloody character in a book basically, and it's like, oh, so I don't have free will. You can see it that way, and that's an uncomfortable feeling to think like that. And then it's, oh, this is all a pointless, futile experience. But that's coming from the negative perspective of it. But it just needs the perspective changed. Um, we're looking for, everybody wants a slice of the pie, but pie is 360, so it implies all round vision. The eyes are circular. I see the Earth as being like a giant eyeball, so that would imply that that is circular, or spherical as well. And it got expressions here. We go round again, going round and round, doing the same things over and over again as well. So we do like an orbit. These thoughts and things go round and round the mind as well. Everything does an orbit of some kind. I'm not even going to get into the realms of discussing shape of the Earth or the physicality of it. The whole thing is, to me, is just, it's fallen away like a shadow. It's like arguing over the historical accuracy of this or that thing. It doesn't matter. It's what part of it is going to benefit me. What is that story telling me? What is the essence that I can extract from that? The bit that is going to benefit me.
And whatever this realm is that we're living in, it'll give you evidence for whatever you're looking for, whatever you're inclined to believe. You will find that evidence. And that even goes for people like Jason, right? You never know. Some of his stuff just might be because he believes it so much. And you can even manifest it if you just have that much energy, emotion behind it. So, there's that going on too. I've just seen that so many times where you believe something and you can find all this evidence to prove whatever you believe.
Seek and ye shall find. So yeah, if you look for it, But at the same time, my experience of it is I'm not consciously looking to see number sequences, but something alerts me to say, look at the phone at a particular time, and it generally got 44 on there or 144. Maybe the subconscious, and because I keep seeing that, so I feel I'm being shown something. Well, maybe that's the energy I'm putting out is I believe, and I keep seeing 144. So this reality will present 144 to me. I take it as
That's
like
funny because
a,
I see I was just
sorry.
gonna say I see 4 all the time, and right now my phone's at 44%. And I was just gonna tell you that earlier I was looking at the Planck distance, the smallest distance they can measure Planck length, and it's 10 to the negative 44.
I've got 77. I just looked when you said that you got 44%. All I do, I take it. I look at the external. So let's take social media. It's like thumbs ups and likes and things to posts. I take these things as nothing more as sort of universe confirmations. 144 is 9. You're saying you get 44. Well, that is 144. It's not 244s. It's one. It's 144. It comes down to how we hear these things and how we see. It's perception with hearing. It's perception with sight. It's perception with internal feeling. I think this whole thing is beautiful. In some ways, it's like, yeah, I do want to go round again. I've got an unlimited ticket on this in this fun fair, so I may exercise coming back, being a gatekeeper, as it were, because I am showing the same as you're doing. We're showing doorways. When one door closes, another one's open. So let go of what doesn't serve you, and there's another door that opens or is being held open to find that light within inside yourself. That's really what we're all looking for. Want to know who we are, where we are, what our purpose is, what are we here for, what is this all about? Well, that answers all that. The answers really are all within. It's just a lot of these things become cliche sayings without any explanation. So someone who's confronted with that for the first time, it's like, well, what does that mean? But it requires effort. It requires on sort of, okay, I get the concept of it. I'm open to the idea of it. I get the concept of it. Well, now I want to experience it. I want to know if it's true. The only way I'm going to know it's true is to experience it. So I'm going to take that leap into the unknown, and I'm going to go for it. And so far, so good. It's the sword of
That's why
destiny.
Tom Campbell tries to teach people how to astral project and just go out of body, because he says everybody can experience so much more. We don't have to, but we're all capable of it. And
Yeah.
again, if it's not your experience, you can't be sure about it.
One of the best experiences I've been through. Now, a lot of people are going to say, no, it's just your imagination. Well, yeah, of course it's all imagination, because that's where everything is. But the experience was as real as this, where I'm sitting in a room, I can see all these solid objects. I went and met Neville Goddard. Now, it could have been sometime in the 1950s or the 1960s. I don't know. I didn't see the front page of the newspaper. He's sitting at a table in, like, an occasional table in a hallway in quite a lavish hotel. And the amusing thing about it was, before I could really formulate the question, like, hello, Neville, am I doing the right thing? He's already answered it before I've even finished the question in the mind. I can smell the air. I can see the hotel staff going backwards and forwards. Like, I can smell the flowers that in the vase in the window. I can see and I could touch the texture of the wallpaper. It's lavish. It's not cheap, this hotel. And it's like I'd gone through the wall, and then I've come back, and I've found myself back in this time zone again. Now a lot of people are going to dismiss that and say, "Oh, it's just imagination." To me, that was very, very real. No one can take that experience away from me, but at the same time, I can only explain it of what I went through. But that's down to every individual to do that. Now, if we go with, say, to Ken Wheeler, he will call meditation woo woo. I can understand his perspective on that. I feel, because a lot of this is down to the labels and words that are applied. It's about immersion, like a full body immersion as in a religious ceremony. But we're not doing in a physical. We're doing in a spiritual, and with the mind as opposed to the brain, the non-material part. You immerse yourself in something and then you re-emerge. So anything where you're taking yourself away from this external realm where you lose sense of time, where you really go into something creative, I'd feel is the key to this. To do something creative. And it doesn't matter what the topic is. It could be like Jason's done. You immerse yourself in whatever project you're doing. You deny the outside reality. You lose sense of time. You lose awareness of this physical realm. It's no different from what a child does, a young child that plays with toys. They become those characters with a doll's house. They're driving that toy car on the carpet. They're oblivious to the external. They're not worrying about wars, famines, and all these negative things that are presented to us. They're living in their imagination, but existing in this reality at the same time. They're walking two worlds. We're taught from very early on through this system programming, one, to look negatively at everything, two, we have these barriers put in place of what's real and what isn't real. And then we're told what's right and what's wrong. But if you question any of this too much, especially at school, you're told to shut up and we've got to stick to the curriculum. Well, that's not learning. It's not, I've not got a satisfactory answer to the question. And that question is always going to be why. It's like, well, if nobody's going to tell me and no one seems to have the answers, and yet we've all got the answers within inside us, well, it's always the last place we look, and that's going within inside oneself. The meek shall inherit the earth. Well, it's the me key, because these letters are flipped around to disguise these things. And we're in the world of Maya, where everything will be, and it's all about reflections, reflecting on things anyway. I mean, people talk about the medieval age. Who says we're not in it? We are it. We're definitely in it. I can see the evil that the media are presenting. Is that not the media evil age that we're in then? And we're in the dark ages because we're kept in the dark about so much. We're fed stories and things that we're supposed to go along with, and things we're supposed to believe that it's supposed to be the general consensus or by the opinion polls. But in those particular cases, I've never come across anybody that's ever been asked one of these Gallup polls. So who are these people? They're just ways
Not
of
everybody tells the truth on polls either. Polls are a joke.
Well, polls are alluding to the energy, the terminal poles of a battery, for example. You either go to one or the other. But you don't have to. You can. The thing with the electric as Ken Wheeler says, it's a hybrid of two things, dielectric and magnetism. Well, dielectric then. I'm turning it off. I'm not focusing on it. I'm going to use no tongue. I'm going to use that sword, that nothing, and I'm going to give it nothing because it's a monster I don't want to feed. I mean, I haven't got a physical sword that I'm waving about. It's a metaphorical sword, but it's actually the spine. It's having a backbone. It's having that self-belief, that self-confidence. And my testimony is, by some miracle, things just have a way of falling into place. Yesterday was a perfect example of this. I got a phone call from my support worker, and in conversation, he suddenly said, "Do you want a food parcel?" And I said, "Oh, yes, please." I thought, I don't really need one, but I'm not going to turn it down when it's offered. Within half an hour, I went to the fridge, and the food I'd got from the food bank on Monday, there was ready-made salads and things, and you can see where they're starting to blow, and it's like opened a little bit, and the sense of smell told me that they've gone off. So it's like, well, that's a waste, but they're no longer fit for consumption, and somehow the universe has already preempted this and given me before I've even realized there's a problem. I thought, well, this is just fantastic. To me, that's saying I'm going the right way, because I've described this as, in this realm, we have what are called mileposts, but I turn it round. I move the spirit to the start, so it now becomes smile posts. It's happiness, it's joy, and my experience is, I don't know what these target things are, as it were, or rungs on the ladder, but it seems to be when we reach certain points, the universe seems to reward us as we go. It gives us something, and I find that fantastic and very, very beautiful, and it just encourages me to keep going with this, and hopefully be that gatekeeper that is going to say, well, you've got the key, there's the lock, just turn it. You turn a key where you're turning your perspective. By turning that perspective key, you're now opening a door. It's now going to unlock for you. It's beautiful, because there is beauty to be found in this realm. It is not all doom and gloom. It just appears that way. But the word appear, it's like you're going out on a jetty and you're gazing out into the distance. I see no ships. And of course, human eyesight in the physical sense, I believe, is about 3 miles. So everything beyond that is going to distort. You're not going to be able to see it. But it doesn't mean it's not there. It just hasn't come into our vision at that point. But we don't need to be peephole people. Things will appear. We don't need to stand on the pier and look externally for them. Muhammad does not go to the mountain comes to Muhammad. I mean, that sounds a funny saying as well. If you conjure up this impression of this solid sort of mountain range is now going to suddenly move to a human being, I mean, that is ridiculous to even sort of see it in that way. And of course, it won't make sense if you take it that literally. But we're dealing with the unseen, the non-physical realm. That's where the real magic happens. From everything comes nothing. It's like, this is a fantastic experience. I'm loving it.
Right. And that's how it can be. It's all your perspective. You said that earlier. That's so key. You can perceive this as some kind of prison, some kind of trap, or you can see it as just an amazing opportunity to create a reality that you haven't even imagined at this point. So, yeah,
Yeah,
it's super cool.
Well, there's many keys. I mean, you've got key signatures in music. If you listen to a piece of music, it doesn't matter what it is. If it's something you like, something you're drawn to, just and look at that word, something you're drawn to. Well, you're the one doing the drawing. You are the artist. You're creating a picture in the mind. You're creating a reality. Internalize those sounds, those tones. Where does that a particular tone in a piece of music? Where do you feel it? Music can, or in particular, they get attachments. Like, oh, I don't like that piece of music because that reminds me of when this or something negative happens. Or it can be, oh, I I remember that song. That was the one I first danced to when I got married, or there's these sort of scenarios. But if you can sort of remove the attachments and then hear them like you've not heard them before, and internalize the tones, examine internally, where does that music hit you? Does it make you feel sad? Does it make you feel elated? They're all keys. The tones, colors, and everything, they're all keys. And it's always weighed up like the scales of Libra. It's blindfolded. It's done by the feeling. How does it feel? Weigh it up inside yourself. There is no definitive right, wrong, or anything. This is all art. The art of living, the art of growing. Well, what are we growing? We're growing a physical avatar. We're growing an experience. We're spiritually growing from the experience. But the spiritual growing, where is its physical form? That's housed within us, and yet it is greater than the dimensions of the physical. Same as the mind, it's not confined to the solid skull. It's stretching the mind beyond that. It's the beyondness of things. That's a John Barry soundtrack. Did a bit. He wrote a lot of the James Bond music. It was also The Day the Earth Fell Silent. Fantastic sounds. Modern, quite a modern day composer. But it's just personal choice. Not everybody's going to like it, but I love that expansive orchestral sound because we are an orchestra. We are the conductor of this orchestral body. I've sort of used the musical perspective. I mean, I'm no musician. I can't read music, but I can still appreciate and I can still give a perspective, and I can bring in. It's with this reality. It's always about cross comparison. If you're told a piece of information, it could be true. It might not be true, but when you compare it with other things, it then also reveals whether it's more likely to be true or not. I mean, a classic example is look at a Wikipedia entry on something and then look at several other Wikipedia entries and that they actually conflict on dates. And it's like, oh, this is interesting. And incredibly, they always seem to be updated within the last 2 months. It may just be a little citation entry or something, but it's incredible how recent all these Wikipedia things in, but at the same time, it also shows how history is being changed with the touch of a button. There's no need to burn books anymore. It's all done electronically. The damage and destruction in the physical is actually far less. That's the irony of it. But instead of piling up books and having a bonfire, you just press a button, and overnight all the internet has changed with that Wikipedia entry. Quite
That's why it's a
amazing.
good thing that all the answers are inside us. We don't need all that, and they're accessible via the Akashic records. So
Yeah,
we
I'm
don't even, yeah, we don't need all their data, the
well. I,
way they store it.
well, I'm grateful to what it shows because, we're clearly dealing with something that has no imagination and no ability to create. It only has the ability to adapt something that's already there. So instant downloads and things, what's it copying? It's copying this spiritual thing. There's no time or space elements in astral projection or meditation. If you go off somewhere, it, it's within a second. You're there. Same as in a dream. If there's an external noise, the mind in that dream will incorporate that sound and give it a back history that was never there. That is incredible. That shows how quick the mind can really work if you sort of open up the throttle, as it were, and that is what it's all about. It's opening up. And Jason has said about Moses as a fictitious character, and actually shows through the lack of information, the lack of quotes. I mean, it's based on, like, Enoch was 365 years and then he was not. This has come up in the last few days. It's like that sword is called no tongue or nothing, which the first part of that is not. But it's not a knot like in a piece of string. It's being unknotted at the same time, because it doesn't matter that whether there was or wasn't a Moses and whether it's an insertion. The esoteric message is still true. It comes down to this read and read, see thing. I'm going to quote, if I can find where I've written it here, which always the way when you're looking for something. I had it open. Oh, that was a silly thing. Yeah, these are Bruckner's actual words. He says to his doctor, he says, "See, I have already dedicated symphonies to two majesties, to poor King Ludwig and our illustrious emperor," that's Franz Joseph of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, "as the highest earthly majesty I recognize, and now I dedicate my last work," he's talking about his ninth symphony, "to the majesty of all majesties, to the dear Lord." Well, dear, remember we're in a mirror. Dear backwards is read, basically. The E and the A are swapped around, but this is the thing, they're like anagrams. They're not just a straightforward reverse. Sometimes it's letters within a word are flipped over as well. So just like you have a spelling of see and hear, you've got EA right in the middle of dear or read. That's a huge clue. The EA, the fused E and A, the all and everything. It's the character, the 27th silent character of the alphabet that has no sound of its own. Just like it says in the Bible, "I of myself can do nothing," which is true. What I are we talking about? We're talking about the spiritual essence, the I, the individual awareness of our essence that becomes I am. The am is the combination. See, the E and the A are often swapped, so it's EM as much as it is AM. So EM is electromagnetic. So it's the electrical thoughts of the mind, the magnetism of the heart. But of course, you need the dielectric of the gut feeling, the God feeling, the power and the wisdom, as Neville Goddard says, the power and the wisdom is the Christ, but it has to ascend, it has to rise up to activate the pineal gland. That is the grail, that is the throne, that is the seat in the it's called Golgotha, which means skull. It can't be accidental with all these things. And if you look at the brain, it's like a toroidal field if you view it from above. And it's parting
Everything is a toroidal field.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. It's fantastic when it's actually physically, there's a physical thing you can point to show it as well like that. It helps at least with the
Yeah,
conceptualization
yeah.
of it.
Speaking of that, the analema shape when it shows the sun
Yeah.
over the year, how it makes kind of infinity sign, but it's not symmetric. And I was saying, well, it could be the 5-to-1 ratio like you have with the blue shift, red shift, right? And magnetism. And then it's even the hourglass shape. It's like the inside of a torus field. So it's like there's this giant torus field kind of displayed up there.
Well, I was thinking about this. If we're gonna look at it in terms of the Earth, now I take the sky to being like the lens of the eye. So you've got basically a concave shape that we're looking at. We're on the inside, so we're on the like the cave. Um, I hope I got this right way around. Convex would be on the outside, so it would expand. In the concave, it would pinpoint. It would focus inward. It's like funny that, but it's all going inward. Um, where was I going with this? Oh, I've lost my train of thought. I've derailed. Oh, if I try and think it, it won't come back. This is the problem. Yeah, sorry. Well, look at the alkaline and acidity balance with these avatars. You need to be more to the alkaline than the acidic. So that's not balanced anyway. But yeah, sorry, that's where I was going with this. So the analemma, if you're seeing, you're looking at like an oblique angle to the thing. So it may not be that it's not an equal loops either side of the center point. I mean, we are the center point. That the point of everything is you. You are the center of your universe. And you've got these two loops. And it just goes for eternity like that. But the whole point of it is right in the middle. I understand the moon does it as well. And it does it's longer on one side of its cross than the other. And
I
even,
think everything has the 1-to-5 ratio in it somewhere.
yeah, I mean, when people talk about the cross, um, like in the Bible, Jesus on the cross, well, it's not a plus sign.
Yeah, good example.
Yeah, the linear line is slightly one side more than the other, but it's also showing that the physical man, that's as high as you're going to get, and you've nailed yourself to a belief system. The body is the cross. But the Christ, the essence of us, can go much higher. But that's mortal remains, the Jesus part of it. It can't go anywhere else. How could it? And then in that story, it's when Christ returns, nobody recognizes him, which to me implies that if you didn't have a physical avatar, then how would you operate? No one would recognize you as an essence with the physical eyes anyway. It's the it's revealed to the mind's eye.
Well, there's frequency too.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean that's all, whether it be sound or light, it's just different ranges of frequency really. And it's quite amazing. It's I'm looking at this table and my 5 external senses are telling me, like with touch and sight in particular, are telling me that's real. It's confirming to me that's real. And Well, of course it's going to feel real. If it didn't feel real, we wouldn't, we'd be like, oh, I don't need to go through all this. I know it's just a computer game. And then it would defeat the object of the purpose of it. So it's meant to be convincing, but I can look at it and think, and I can sort of gain sort of like an awareness of, well, that's only held together by minute atoms that I can't actually, they're too small for the physical eyes to see and decode as such. But at the same time, you can get into a state where you see things in their energy form, and it does look like the Matrix. I can see where they've got the idea of the black screen and the green lines and outlines of things. It hasn't had color added into it. You've only got the black light that comes out as green. It's same as the Ouroboros, these northern lights. That's why they come out green. It's an internal sun of Mother Earth, just as the same as we have an internal sun within inside all of us. It's that birth from above is expressed as the white dove that comes down. There are only ways of interpreting things in the same way as if I look up at the night sky, I'm not going to see a bull, I'm not going to see a crab or a lion. I'm going to see a series of lights. And if I look at the things I see on the screen, if I look up Leo, I can see, oh yeah, those lights. Or if I do imaginary lines, I've got loosely something like a lion. But I don't see a lion up in the sky. It's only a concept and a way to describe the thing. It's not to be taken literally that there's a great big lion up there or a bear. Or but it just amazes me and bemuses me the way people can see that, see it with that analogy, but then they can't take that same blueprint and apply it to everything else and see what's really being shown. Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
you have to be a real person to see what's really being shown. But if you look, you will find it.
Look at that word as well, real. You've got E and A again in it. And my father is real. It just is. It doesn't mean a physical, biological father. The father is the blueprint, the pattern, the paternal. But it's joined with a material which comes from the maternal, from Mother Earth. That's your family. Your father and your mother, it's the earth and the paternal blueprint spirit. The union of the two creates this experience. We are the sons. We're basically, it's basically as above, so below. You look up at the sky on a clear night without light pollution, you'll see lots and lots of stars. Some are clustered together, some are spread out. Well, what about humanity? What if you were then to flip the perspective 180 degrees and imagine yourself up looking from a star? Well, humans, if you could see them at that sort of magnitude, would be like clusters together in cities and some spread out. No different.
As above, so below.
Yeah. I take that to go even further and internalize that saying. Well, if I've got the father who's asleep, the inactive pineal, I've got the wisdom that was given to the son, which is below. And of course, like with the Kundalini rising, and is shown with the chakra system, the solar plexus is not at the bottom. It has to fall. It has to fall first, just like the light bearer, for the light to then ascend. The Lucifer and Jesus are just two principles of the same thing, or more accurately, the Lucifer and the Christ principles. The one is a prelude and a necessary part. It is our greatest teacher. Now, there's a lot of people who say, "Oh, blasphemy, blasphemy! Oh, you're saying word." I'm not saying worship anything. Far from it. I'm just saying, see what is being shown to you. Embrace, because it is all as above, so below, as it were. We've all got this demon, this fallen angel, this Lucifer, whatever name you want to give it. It's part of the free will to be able to make the choice to do good or bad, see something as good or bad, and depending on what we see and the way we weigh it up, we either feel good or bad about it. We'll agree or we'll disagree about it. But wouldn't it be better if you can create a peaceful, contented, harmonious internal universe? And it is content, because it's got two meanings to con. It can be deception, but it can also be the joining, like conjoined, conjunction. You're bringing together. So a content, or a tent, is like a triangle shape if you see it from the end generally, and you're creating like a pyramid. Your own Great Pyramid of Giza is inside you. To me, that is just an architectural representation of us again. And I feel we do have that countdown code going, and it's starting to
It's only
activate.
half of them because I think it's more the Merkaba shape with two pyramids.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. There has to be a downward one as well, to balance.
That's our upper chakras.
So twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are, up above the clouds so high, like a diamond in the sky. Well, if you put two triangles base to base, you're going to get a diamond shape.
Yep. And that's probably the place to end, James, because we've been on here about an hour and a half.
Oh, wow,
And
already. See,
you
time.
always have so much depth in what you say that like me, I usually have to listen to you more than once, and there's always still more there. So that's really awesome. But yeah, there's so
Well,
much depth in what you say. So if you make it too long, then
that's
there's so
something
much media out there now too.
that's something again that is shown in this physical material world, and it's a huge clue. With driving, it's like you've got to put your turn indicators on for a minimum of 3 times so people can see it. Well, in this particular case, we're trying to see with the ears more than the eyes. So I will always say, to really sort of get an understanding and a concept, to then, if it feels right, to then take it further and do it for yourself, is to listen to something 3 times over to really get that message in. Because again, the system does it. It's through repetition. You're programmed through repetition, like learning the 12 times table.
And even if you listen at double speed,
Yeah.
you could do that because I know a lot of us don't have time to listen to everything 3 times. So you have to pick
Well,
and choose. But yeah, and a lot of times if you have it at that really fast speed, you listen more carefully. Some people you can't do it, but some you can do 1.5 or 1.75. And especially when people are listening to me, I talk really slow. You can listen to me at 3 times probably, but yeah, double speed easily.
that's fantastic. I forget to do that. That would save a lot of time, because look at the word time. It's me, because it's occupying part of this life experience. I'm having to spend time. but it's time well spent. So,
Exactly. And time means nothing in eternity, right?
well, this is it. I mean, in dreams, you can instantly go somewhere. In meditation, you can instantly go places. In astral projection, there's no time or space. That dreams prove that with the external noise being incorporated into, it could be a telephone ringing, but in that dream,
I
in that
just had that happen. I just had that happen a couple of days ago. I was
wow,
dreaming that I was in pain on my arm, and then and I don't remember dreams that much, and all of a sudden I woke up and Biggie's toenail was like poking into my arm.
oh, yeah, I mean, there's the proof that time is just a sort of this linear time is just a concept in this physical realm. But in the dream, you're stepping out of the physical, and it opens up a world where time does not and space do not exist. That's beautiful. It's like, well, how much more proof do people need? Most people can experience this at some point anyway, and they can see it for themselves. Whether they choose to believe it is another thing.
I think once they experience it, they can't deny it, and that's the thing. We can all
Yeah.
astral project. We can all lucid dream if we put the work into it and the intention to do it. I've talked before how I was able to lucid dream by putting the intention basically and doing a couple little exercises that were suggested. And there's all kinds of suggestions on how to astral project and lucid dream, those kinds of things, all over YouTube and other places. So if you want proof that there's more to this reality than just the material realm, then do that kind of thing. And most of us do remember some dreams, and that should be enough proof, really.
Well, that's going to be the thing. Dreams and things that can only ever be a personal experience. So that saying about the secret is revealed only to one. Well, that's it. It's secreted from the brain. It's brain fluids that are moving around in in the brain, the physical brain. So yeah, I mean, I always try and give sort of daily things that people can relate to. That saying about with clothing, oh, I wouldn't be seen dead in that. People will only go for something if they can see themselves in it, like whether it be buying a house or clothes or a car. If they've got to picture themselves in the thing, and if it doesn't agree to them from the maybe the color or whatever, they're not going to do it. So I try and explain things in everyday terms to make it as easy as possible. So the dreaming is a perfect one to show that time is just a concept in this, I say, conscious sort of waking hours. Um, it's part of
Yeah.
this.
Well, this experience is just a dream as much as a dream is a dream. It's all the same. So whatever it is very magical and
It's today's
just never boring.
this is today's world. It's 2 days. We're in a conscious dream and a subconscious dream. But it's still dreams. And again, the word dream, you've got E and A in the middle again.
Yeah. And then if you flip
Spell.
that AE, you got your ether.
You can even spell sleep with EA instead of double E. It's only down to the spell, but the sound is going to be the same. And it reveals the same EA, which, funny enough, is the old name for Enki.
Well, there you go, everyone. Plenty to ponder from this discussion, I'm sure. And thanks everybody for listening. And remember to always focus on what you want and help others if you can. And we'll talk to y'all next time. Ciao, ciao. Thanks, James.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you, audience, for listening.
Hey, I'll premiere this later. If it'll download, my other download restarted after it was almost done. I mean,
Well,
upload to YouTube. We'll see. All right, James. Ciao, ciao.